5 years. They got a huge campus. Remember what I told you about campuses? Costs about $200 million to make. $200 million. And you got 15 to 20,000 people in this church. But I got an idea. Why don't we listen to him and just see what's all the hype? Why are so many people flocking to this church every Sunday to listen to the pastor over there preach? So why don't we spend about 5 minutes and listen to him? I'm here with you. Let's do it. Let's focus on the camera here. I mean on the TV.
Oh, let's give Jesus another.
Let's give Jesus another round of
Salvation and worship all over this room. Come on. Come on, let's shout at God with a voice of triumph. He's the King of the world. What an honor it is to be with each and every one of you guys, especially if you're brand new. My name is Jeremy, and along with my wife Jennifer, we get the honor of being able to pastor here. And we're not just one campus. We meet here at our West Houston campus, but we're also in Katy. We're in Cypress. We're at Cornerstone campus. Thousands of people watching online around the world. Let's welcome all of them in. We're glad each and every person is with us. And last weekend, we launched a new series, and I want you to say the title to your neighbor. It's simply titled, Bring on the Blessings. Turn to somebody and say, bring on the blessings. How many of you guys want a blessing in your life? You'd like to be blessed. Just raise your hand. That's the vast majority of us. The people that aren't raising their hands, they're like, I just never raise my hands in church. That's okay. But all of us want to be blessed. Have you ever wanted to be good at something? There are things that I want to be good at. I want to be a good golfer. Notice it's a desire, not a reality. So, I appreciate the invitations to play golf. You may not want to play golf with me. Like, I have determined that playing golf for me is just fun, okay? It's not like a sport. I'm probably never going to be a great golfer. Simply because I get mad at stuff. And I just had to release that anger. And I get mad at things that I shouldn't be mad at, like the ball. Like, what's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you, like, if you pick your head up in the backswing, like, when you're coming in this swing, you pick your head up, you miss the ball. I know that because I've missed the ball before with people standing right. How do you miss a golf ball? You pick your head up, like you're anticipating it's going to go there, and it's like sitting there just going, I'm still here. And then I get mad at the club. You ever get mad at the club? Now, I've never thrown a golf club because I'm not that angry. But I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. There are men and possibly women in here who've thrown a golf club before, wrapped one around a tree, thrown it in a pond. Get mad at something that didn't do anything, right? Because it's not the club's fault. It's not the ball's fault. Whose fault is it? It's yours. If the trajectory of the ball does not go where you want it to go, you don't actually need to look at the product. You need to look at the pattern. Because it's usually the swing that creates the problem. It's not the things that you use. And a lot of us look at our lives and we're mad at the things that we have and things we don't have or what this person has, when really it's the pattern of our life that produces what's going on in our life. Now we find this in Scripture. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, do not conform to the pattern of the world. So the world has a pattern that should not be the pattern of the church. It says, but be transformed, how? By the renewing of your mind. So it starts here before it shows up here. It starts here. And then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. But patterns are hard. Why? Because we see things that we want and automatically think that we can get them or that we can do them. I had some buddies a few years ago who started riding bicycles, like bikes, like grown men riding bikes. Like, hey man, you want to go ride a bike? I was like, covered all of that when I was 10. I have a truck now. Like, I'll ride beside you guys. I'll throw you water. So I got a truck. I'm good. But then after like 6 months, I noticed like they're getting in shape and they've got this camaraderie and they're all talking about bikes. And I was like, I kind of want to be in the neighborhood bike club. Like, I want to be in the club, you know? And so they were like, hey, you want to go ride with us, Foster? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, we're doing a 30-mile ride on Saturday. You got this? I was like, I'm in. 30 miles. Remember, I haven't done this since I was 10, okay? And I'm thinking like, hey, it's a bike. You just get on it and you ride for 30 miles. I had no idea the pain that I was in for. I said, what do I need? They said, well, first you need a bike. And I was like, I'll get a bike. And so your boy went to a yard sale and got a bike.
All right, I think I had about enough of him. That was one of the messages that you can hear from a pastor that in less than 5 years has created a church that gets a weekly attendance of nearly 20,000 people every week. And as you heard him say, he's got campuses in different locations. Again, we remember campuses cost $200 million. Where did you get all this money? That's the question that we need to say. It's easy to say, God is good. God is great. But we need to say, look, you got a pretty nice church there. You got a nice, background, and we're talking about golf, golfing and biking. Well, are these the things that the disciples did? Are these the things that the first Christians did in the churches? Were they out golfing and biking? Are they over here in mega churches and campuses? He read a good verse. The world has a pattern. The world has a pattern, what it does. But the Bible says, don't conform to the things of this world. That's what he stated. Well, you do know that the church nowadays is a corporation, right? That's what they call it. They even say when we come to worship, we worship corporately. We're here to worship corporately. It's a corporation. In other words, the church has turned into a business. Well, let me tell you. Did you know that you could get life insurance put on you for going to church? Did you know that you can have life insurance put on your life for going to church? Yeah, you go to church, you read the word, you attend. You're one of 10,000 people that come to this church, but you're a member of this church or even a volunteer for this church. You help at the food pantry, or you help with this babysitting or in a Sunday school class, or just a member that just goes. But did you know that you could have a life insurance put on your life for going to church? If a corporation or even just a business or just a group that's knowledgeable by the government, they are legally entitled. Again, I don't judge nobody. It's just everybody needs to know. I judge no one. But a corporation, a church, is legally entitled to get a life insurance policy on you. And in some states, like the state of Texas, you don't even need to know about it. They don't need to tell you. That's what the law states. So because I say this means you going to church, you enjoyed a church, maybe let's say you were a college student and you joined a church while you were in college in, I don't know, Oklahoma. And so you went to the Oklahoma University and you're a college student and you did 4 years, 5 years in the University of Oklahoma. But being a Christian, because you grew up in a church, you joined a church while you were there. You were things there in the youth group, you were there doing so and everything. But you graduate from college and there you get a job down in Chicago, Illinois. So you move to Chicago, Illinois. Well, you leave, no biggie. But 7, 8 years down the road, after you're living in Chicago, Illinois, you develop cancer. You come down with cancer. And then you die. But you're only 32 years old. You're only 34 years old, but you're dead. Did you know that the church that you attended back when you were in college, the Oklahoma City University that you were going to, they collect $150,000 on your death? Bet you didn't know that, did you? Now keep in mind, I'm not selling you conspiracy theories here. I'm not selling you something that I'm just wishy-washy in my brain. I'm telling you the way it is. And when you put 2 and 2 together, the only question I can ask you is, don't you think? Now, you may say, Sam, what kind of life insurance can a church get on me? It's called a group life insurance. And actually, they got 2 choices of what they could do. One, they could get a term life insurance policy on you. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's up to them. Or 2, they can give you a permanent life insurance policy. Therefore, it doesn't matter if you are 20 years old. If they paid a permanent life insurance policy on your life all the way till you're 99 years old and you die at 92, that church still gets paid. That's the way the world works. And isn't it interesting that he just mentioned to us what Romans 12:2 says? Don't conform to the patterns of this world. Okay, why don't you show me one verse in the Bible that says you could get life insurance policies on your church members, or your church staff, or your church volunteers? Tell me one verse that tells me that you could get a life insurance policy on anyone that goes to church. They're not going to show you a verse because there's none that exist. But I will tell you a verse that Jesus Christ says. You cannot serve two masters. You're going to be devoted to one and despise the other. You're going to love the one or hate the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, you may say again, I don't believe you, Sam. I'm still not righteous enough to believe in faith. I'm still not willing to step out in faith believing. I understand. But leave it to me to do the work for you. Let me show you a website, just so you know what I'm talking about. And so that you can see, I'm not lying to you. I'm not making assumptions. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm telling you what the law allows to be done to you. So why don't we take a look at the screen over here? Life insurance for church personnel and members. This is courtesy of Insurance One, Moyer and Moyer. Well, how does it work? Well, you got two types of life insurance. You have a term life policy, which lasts 10, 20, 30 years, or you got a permanent life insurance policy, which has a set price and does not expire. And you could find that courtesy of Insurance One with Moyer and Moyer. Life insurance for church personnel and members. All right. Well, going back to church. Here's the thing. We're talking about churches that are just so huge. And how did they get so big? With so many campuses and huge buildings, so many people that go to these churches. Well, and the thing is that these churches, again, they're only open one day a week. The church building itself is usually open just on Sunday morning. They rely on yourselves to gather together in people's homes, in coffee shops, Bartistas, wherever it is, but not the church, during the week so that you could do life together. That's the purpose of these big churches. That's what they love for you to do. Life together. Whatever that means. But my point is if these churches are only open one day a week, where do they get all the money so that they can build a $200 million facility, and not one, not two, but 3+ in a matter of years? Well, this is going to be Gateway Baptist Church. Let's listen to Gateway Baptist Church, which is one of the largest churches in America. This church alone gets 40,000 people every week. 40,000 people go to this church every week. And you may say, well, okay, let's hear what the pastor has to say. Let me tell you what you're going to expect from this preacher. What he wants to convey here is he's going to go ahead and mention to you that the Sabbath is to remain holy. As a matter of fact, he's going to say that this is one of the most important things that God has ever talked about, is keeping his day holy. Now, right off the top, let me remind you what Jesus Christ says. He says the two commands that the entire Bible are based upon is loving God and loving each other. That's the two commands that Jesus Christ says make up the whole Bible. But this preacher wants to tell you that you need to keep the Sabbath holy. Otherwise, if you don't keep the Sabbath holy, it is equal to murdering someone. It is equal to adultery. It is equal to any other sin, lying, stealing, theft. Let's listen to him talking about keeping the Sabbath holy. Again, this church was founded Easter of 2000, less than 20 years ago. Less than 20 years ago. Those with ears, let them hear. Less than 20 years ago, and already has 40,000 people that go to this church with multiple campuses all around in other places. So let's listen to what he has to say about the Sabbath being kept holy. Let's go ahead and take a look at the TV over here.
So does God have a plan to keep us refreshed? He does. It's called a Sabbath. 1 day a week. And I want you to know that the first time that the word Sabbath was ever in the Bible was not the Ten Commandments. It's in one time before the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are in Exodus 20. We're going to back up to Exodus 16, verse 23. Then he said to them, this is what the Lord has said, tomorrow is a Sabbath rest. I really want you to see the word rest. A holy, that means it's a set apart day to the Lord. Bake what you will bake today. This is what he gave them, manna from heaven. Remember? And boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until morning. So they laid it up till morning, as Moses commanded, and it did not stink, nor were there any worms in it. Before, when they tried to keep it for 2 days, it would stink and there were worms in it. But on Friday, it lasted for 2 days. That's the only day it did. Then Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. I just want you to notice this phrase, because that represented provision from the Lord. Here's what he said, on the Sabbath, I'm not going to provide for you on that day. I provided for you on the day before. In other words, listen to me, if you worked that day, God's not going to help you. You're supposed to rest. He already provided for you to only work 6 days a week. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none. No extra provision from the Lord. He's already provided it. Now it happened that some of the people went out on the seventh day together, but they found none. Again, God didn't provide that day. He'd already provided. And the Lord said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? He hasn't even given the 10 Commandments yet. See, for the Lord has given you the Sabbath. In other words, it's a gift from God. Therefore, he gives you on the 6th day bread for 2 days. Let every man, every person, every mankind, every human remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. So simple question, why did God do this? Obviously, he didn't want us to have any fun on this earth. No, just the opposite. He wanted us to enjoy our life on this earth. So I have 4 points this week, rather than 3, I have 4. Here's number 1. It's a commandment. This made God's top 10 list. Exodus 20, verse 8. And I just want you to notice, before I read this, listen to me, this is going to shock you. The 4th commandment, honor the Sabbath, doesn't say anything about going to church. It's nowhere in the verse. Now, I believe we should go to church. I believe God does several things. I actually thought last night about a message I might preach in a few weeks, why go to church? Because more people are staying home now because you can get church on the internet. And I'm glad if you have to stay home and you watch on the internet, I'm glad, don't get mad and turn it off. But if you don't have to stay home and you're just doing it so you can stay in your pajamas, there are reasons to come to church. And I'm thinking about going through that. But the 4th commandment doesn't say anything about church attendance. It's talking about rest. Exodus 20, verse 8. By the way, this is the longest commandment. God spent more time on this one than any other commandment because he knew we would argue with him. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy or set apart. Holy is not a big word, it's a small word. It just means set apart. 6 days you shall labor and do all your emails. But I just wanted to bring it up to modern times. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall turn off your phone. You shall do no work. This is a commandment. This is one of God's top 10. This has the same weight as don't commit adultery. Don't lie, don't steal, don't covet, don't murder. It's in the same list. Honor God first. Don't have any idols. Don't take God's name in vain and honor your mother and father. Same list. In it you shall do no work, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle. He doesn't even want your cows working. Nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it, which means set it apart. It comes from the same root word as holy. Set it apart. Okay, think about this. We could have had a 10-day work week. We could have had a 4-day work week. God invented the 7-day work week. And he invented one of those days to rest. God did this. And then he puts it in his top 10 list. And here's what's amazing to me. Christians really believe that they can violate this commandment, but no other commandment. And we don't keep the commandments to be...
All right. I think I had about enough of that one. Here's the thing. You may tell me, well, it's on the 10 Commandments. But it's the last thing that he just said. He says, what's amazing to me is that Christians, Jesus Christians, believe that they can break this commandment. He's telling you that God is telling you he doesn't even want your cows working on the Sabbath. Doesn't even want your cows to work on the Sabbath. That's what he's saying. And if you have your cows working on the Sabbath, according to this preacher, it's as equal as you committing adultery or murder. It's on the same list. Well, you may say, it is in the same list. But here's what I'm telling you again. He says it's amazing to him that Christians, we follow Christ. He gave us the grace. He's the one who was nailed to the cross to free us from the law of Moses. That's what the whole Christian concept is. That's what Jesus Christ came to do for us. But he's saying it's amazing that Christians believe that they could break the law of not keeping the Sabbath. Well, let me first tell you, this is what Christians believe in Jesus Christ. And let me tell you what Jesus Christ says. Jesus Christ says, let me grab the Bible. This is going to be found in the book of Mark. Mark chapter 2. And I'm going to start from 23 to 27. One Sabbath day, as Jesus was walking through some grain fields, his disciples began breaking off heads of grain to eat. But the Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, why are they breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath?" Jesus said to them, "Haven't you ever read in the Scriptures?" It's the same Scriptures that bring you the 10 Commandments. "What David did when he and his companions were hungry? He went into the house of God during the days of Abiathar was high priest, and broke the law by eating the scared loaves of bread that only the priests are allowed to eat. He also gave some to his companions." Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath." Let me repeat that to you. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. That's what Jesus Christ said. But this pastor here says it's amazing to him how Christians believe that we could break this law. Well, that's because we follow Christ. And Christ says that the Sabbath wasn't meant for us to meet the needs of the Sabbath, but for the Sabbath to meet the needs of us. Therefore, if your cows need to work, let them work. Because God and Jesus Christ is Lord even over the Sabbath. Okay, let me come back to group life insurance policies. Here's the thing. with the church, like we saw just a minute ago with group life insurance, you either get the term life or you get the permanent life insurance policy. Well, the church needs 4 things from you. The church, or rather the corporation, because nowadays they gather corporately. And the church will even tell you we gather corporately. That's what Sunday is about. It's the business aspect of the church. Now, where all this is biblically, I have no idea. But I do know one thing, that in the last 25 years, churches have exploded. Not churches, campuses. Now, let me tell you, when you come to a church, okay, you need 4 things. For insurance. The insurance needs 4 things from you in order to get life insurance policies on you through the church. In other words, the church, they need to meet the requirements of 4 things. The church needs to meet the requirements of 4 things. Let me tell you what those 4 things are. First of all, they need to invite you to the corporation. You need to be invited into the church. You're invited into this business. You're invited into what we have going on here, into the group. Since you are going to be a part of the group life insurance policy, you need to be invited. The second thing that the church needs from you is they need for you, they need to explain how valuable you are. You're invaluable to the church. First of all, you are invited to the church. Second thing is, you are valuable to the church. That's what they need. The third thing is they need you to feel that you are valuable. They need you to feel that you're influential, that you have a say here in the company, that you have a say in the corporation, that you have a say in the church / campus. They need you to, first of all, be invited. They need to say, since you come, you're valuable. They need you to believe, I am valuable. I do have influence. I do have say in this company. And lastly, they need you to invest with your tithe. They need you to give tithe. They need you to give money so that you are invited, you're valuable, you feel valuable, and you invest into the company. Therefore, a company or corporation can get the maximum possible life insurance policy on your life. That's all it takes. Those 4 steps. A corporation, a company, just needs 4 steps to get a group life insurance policy on you. What are they? First of all, they need to invite you to the church, to the company. They need to say, this person is definitely valuable, since they're a part of our family, they're a part of our group, they're a part of our church. And then they need you to feel valuable. They need you to feel influential. And the last thing is, they want you to give your tithe to the church. That's it. Those are the 4 steps to get a life insurance policy on you. Which brings me to my last and final church that I want to show you. This church is called Life Church. Life Church. This church has over 100,000 people that come to this church across this country in 10 different states, in 33 different campuses. 33 different campuses in 10 different states, 100,000 people. Talk about networking. Talk about busy bees, you know what I mean? Networking. Anyway, this is going to be the last church that I want to show you. And you got to think to yourself, let those with ears hear. How in the world can a church, I don't know if I mentioned, this church began in 1998. 1998 by Greg Gershaldo, whatever his last name is. That's the senior pastor. This began in 1998, and it was dawned on him when he was a student in college, university, that he needed to come to God and he needed to start a church. While he was in college, university, he used to He used to be a bully, according to him. He used to be one of the popular kids. He used to be a football player, and so on, this and that. That's his testimony. But when we look at that and we say, wow, this certainly is a guy that really is somebody to look up to. I mean, because how in the world in 21 years, can you manage to get 33 campuses, over 100,000 people in 10 different states? That's an average of 3 churches every other year. That's an average of opening 3 campuses every 2 years. These are $200 million campuses. How in the world did you do this? Those with ears, let them hear. So why don't we listen to the Pastor Greg, which was just taken about a month ago. Let's listen to Life Church.
Amen. I've got a question for you, and we're asking it 4 weeks in a row. What I want to know is, are you in? And if you're in, you're going to say, I'm in. We're looking at 4 different qualities as to how our God sees you. And all of them begin with the letters I-N. Last week we looked at the reality that I'm invited, that you are invited into the family of God. I want to show you where we're going over these 4 weeks with our icons on the screen. You are invited. Somebody say, I'm invited. I'm invited. This week we're going to look at the truth of the matter that you are invaluable to God's work. Somebody say, I'm invaluable. Next week we're going to look at the reality that you are influential for God's glory. Somebody say, I'm influential. And in week 4, I hope you're going to see that you are invested in God's work. Somebody say, I'm invested. I need a little help from all of you today. Those of you in Springfield, Missouri. I need somebody in Fort Worth, Texas. I need someone in South Tulsa, Oklahoma. Can you all say these things aloud? What are you? Somebody say, I am what? I am invited. I'm invaluable. I'm influential. I'm invested. Today what I want to do is talk to you about the reality that you are invaluable to God's work. Now, just to be really, really clear, invaluable doesn't mean not valuable. It's the opposite. It means that you are uniquely valuable to God. You are valuable just because you are you. You're a child of God. You're invaluable. Jesus told a parable about a shepherd that had 100 sheep. And one of the sheep, just one, wandered away. And the shepherd so much loved the one that he left the 99 to go after the one. The one was that valuable to the shepherd. And let's think about it this way. I've got a bracelet. Imagine if I had 100 of these bracelets and I lost one. If I lost one, I wouldn't care that much because I've got 99 other ones. You are not a bracelet.